Hey, we're here with Tim Hall. Everybody knows of the Hall Brothers Racing Team and the Ram sponsored team. We're here to get to know Tim a little bit. A lot of people only see Tim at the races and very serious, but we want to talk a little bit about how they got started. Tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Well, the very first thing, we started back in the old days. Tom Mentz and I worked at the same fertilizer plant, equipment. They made fertilizer trucks, and he, I mud raced, and he was successful at it, and I wasn't. No matter what I did, it went wrong. I couldn't make that work. But we met people along the way, and we thought, okay, this monster truck thing is starting to take off. We should do that. And Mark thought, he kept saying, there's nobody ever going to pay us to race monster trucks. That's not going to happen. And I thought, well, maybe we'll try. We'll just keep trying. And along come the tanks. So we thought, well, maybe we didn't have any money. Maybe we could build a tank. So we paid $600 to a neighbor and drug this tank thing home. He had an old Ford engine in it, the guy did, and we cut that all out of there. And we thought, well, let's go race this. My dad came home from work and it was in the driveway, and he thought, what the hell are you going to do with that? We're going to race this. You're going to do what? And we're going to race it. We're going to put a blower motor in it, and we're going to race it. So Mark and I convinced him that it would be all right, and then he said, well, how are you going to haul it? Well, we're going to learn to drive a semi. You can't drive a semi. Well, we're going to learn to drive a semi. I traded a toolbox for a semi, so you know what I got. It was probably, it wasn't the best semi, but it made it down the road, and we convinced a promoter to book us, and ironically, I think we got $600 on our first show, so wow. It was almost paid for the first.
Okay.
But
now the body you put on that, because this was the heavy metal,
yeah.
Right? The heavy metal, that was the first tank I ever remembered seeing of you guys.
I went to a junkyard in south of Danville, Illinois, there by us, and I asked the guy, he had some old truck bodies and stuff in there. I said, would you be willing to furnish one of them old truck bodies if I put your name on there? And he said, well, yeah, sure. So we found an old F1 body that wasn't completely junk, and drug it out of there, and that was why we used it, because he just had it, and we put it on there, and it worked pretty good for a while. But after, those things hit the ground so hard, after a while, that old body was just, it was giving up. Mark and I tried different types of suspension and stuff in there. It was an M4 tank.
Okay.
So what do they have? 2 or 3 inches of track travel, or
if
whatever.
that.
Yeah. So, we had coil springs, we had all kinds of different stuff. And I remember he'd jump some things and land and then disappear for a second and come back up because the seat mount would bend, and we'd have to get a tractor and bend the seat back in between rounds. And
now, did Mark do all the driving?
Yeah, Mark did all the driving. By the time we got to the monster truck stuff, the mud racing, I did a little bit of that, and then he did. But
now, you're older than Mark, right?
Yeah, I'm older.
So, okay, all right.
And we have another brother, John, between us, but John doesn't do any of the racing stuff.
Okay.
Just Mark and I. And so he was always the primary driver of the tank. I didn't do it very much. But then one thing led to another. We got the tank was fairly successful, and then we modified it and made it better and better as we met more guys and learned more things. And we decided, well, let's see if we can venture into the rubber tire monster truck, the more conventional thing, and let's give that a try. And but again, we didn't have any money, and but we wanted to kind of get started. We did a lot of stuff up at Great Lakes Dragway for Rev, and and we met up there. We met Mark Bendler, and we met Guy Wood, and we met Rob Fuchs, and we met some of these other guys that kind of became buddies in that era. And we thought, well, they encouraged us too well, you need to build one. And so we thought, let's go ahead and try it. And fortunately, in Champaign, where we're from there, we kind of had the Jegs and Summit, if you will, of the radio control industry.
Okay.
Tower Hobbies and Horizon, Hobby Co. They were all right there. And so one day, as we were starting to lay this thing out, and we were going to try to build it, and we were thinking, how are we going to afford this? We got to figure out a way. But we got in the mailbox a catalog, and it had a Big Boss on the cover of it. It was their new truck that they were going to make. And I called down there and I said, hey, I just happen to be building a monster truck. I'm not far from you, and I'd like to see about doing something with you guys. And for some reason, I don't know why, they let me into the marketing people. And they called me back and they talked. And they said, well, we want to come out to your shop someday. And I said, all right, that'd be great. So I was excited. Boy, we got, I didn't get a no, I got a maybe.
Yeah.
So then they called back about 10 minutes later and said, we're going to come out today.
Oh boy.
And I thought, oh, okay. So I ran back out there and told Mark, hey, they're coming. And they came out and they looked at things and they said, all right, you figure out how much money you need to finish this thing and let's do it.
Wow.
And I thought, okay. So they were going to help us, and the sum of money that we told them was probably about 15 times too small, but we know how it is, and we tried it, and then they said, all right, we want this thing done to debut at a big trade show in Philadelphia. And so we almost got it, we got it pretty much done for their pictures. One of our old crew guys that's passed away now, Daryl Wagner, he was, if you look close in the original photos, he's in behind the grill holding the grill in the truck. So it wasn't complete when they took the photos. But they finished it, and we got it there, and I remember when we drove it in, it didn't have oil pressure, or, there was all kinds of problems with it. But it did its first deal, and then we got it back home and we refined it a little bit. And I remember running over Mom's mailbox trying to learn the rear steering. I didn't know how that worked. And we drug some junk cars out, and we tried to car crush. And I had one of those. I saw Scott. My dad was an announcer, and he announced a lot of tractor pulls, World Outlaws, and AMA flat track and stuff. And it just so happened he was doing some stuff for USA and what was then US Hot Rod. Okay. And he did a show at Dayton at Harrod Arena, tractor pull for USA, and Scott Hess was there. And he had this really cool steering wheel, and I remember, I thought it was pretty cool. And the one I got was orange, fluorescent orange, man, it was cool. So I hit the cars in the Big Boss, and I landed, and the steering wheel bent, and I thought, either these guys are nuts, or I did this way wrong the very first time we crashed cars. But because this, no human being can survive this. And but nevertheless, the Big Boss was interesting because the body that was on it, Kenny Kelling told me, hey, there's a guy starting up building bodies. His name's George Link. He used to work for Bigfoot, and so I bought the first non-Bigfoot fiberglass body from him. And that's what was on the Big Boss. It was a tube frame truck, had leaf springs, but real lightweight leaf springs, long travel. They were, special made ones that we got, and we refined it and we learned a little better. And then I thought, this is probably better if Mark drives this thing than me. So he took off more with it than I did, and that was it. And we got started.